Imagine, for a second, being the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar AI startup. You're building, one of the most advanced digital minds on the planet. And then, completely out of nowhere, your biggest investor, the company that literally hosts all your servers, picks up the phone and calls the federal government to report you as a national security threat.
It sounds totally fabricated, like a pitch for a sci-fi thriller or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But that actually happened this week. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Sunday, June 21, 2026, and we are analyzing a research period spanning from June 13 to June 20th, 2026. This is Macroeconomy AI, and today's broadcast is titled AI Observatory, June 13 to 20, 2026.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Because, we are looking at what has arguably been the most intense 8 days of power redistribution in the tech sector we've seen all year.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
It really has. We've got 15 distinct global events to cover across 4 continents, and, they all point to one single thing, a radical reconfiguration of global power.
Before we pull the thread on all of this, a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in. This broadcast is brought to you by Technova Cloud Solutions. And for those of you just discovering us, we are Channel Macroeconomy AI, bringing a compilation of analyses and news on macroeconomics, technology, and artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
And speaking of tech, Technova Cloud Solutions provides the resilient, scalable infrastructure your enterprise needs to deploy next-generation models securely. Because if there is one thing this week taught us, it's that infrastructure is absolutely everything.
Oh, it is the entire ball game. Without it, you have nothing. And to understand how this infrastructure is shifting right now, you really have to look at the raw materials of the industry.
Right. Which aren't like physical materials in this case.
Exactly. In the AI economy, the ultimate raw materials are engineering talent and massive pools of capital. And we just saw a complete seismic shift in both over the last 8 days.
Yeah, let's start with the talent piece, because I am still trying to wrap my head around the Noam Chomsky news.
It's a huge deal.
For anyone not obsessively tracking Silicon Valley org charts, Chomsky was the vice president of engineering at Google, right? Like co-leading the Gemini models. And he just steps down to join OpenAI as their lead of AI architecture research.
Yeah, and to understand why this is sending such shockwaves, you have to look at how these models are actually built. Chomsky isn't just some high-level executive. He's a co-author of that famous 2017 paper, Attention is All You Need.
Oh, wow. The one that basically started this whole era.
Exactly. That paper introduced the transformer architecture.
Yeah.
And the transformer is it's the mathematical foundation, the literal engine that powers ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini.
And the irony here is just staggering to me, because 2 years ago, in 2024, Google paid roughly $2.7 billion to acquire the startup called Character.ai.
Right.
But everyone in the industry knew they weren't really buying the product. They were executing this astronomical acqui-hire just to repatriate Chomsky back to Google.
Yeah, $2.7 billion just to get their guy back.
So they paid billions to get him, and then less than 2 years later, he just walks out the door to their biggest rival. And Sam Altman is out here calling it a partnership 10 years in the making. But my question for you is, why now? Why leave Google when they clearly gave him a blank check?
It comes down to capability ceilings. Yeah. The open secret in AI research right now is that the transformer architecture, the very thing Chomsky helped invent, is starting to hit a wall.
So we can't just keep scaling it forever.
Right. Simply throwing more data and more compute at the problem is yielding diminishing returns. Google paid a massive premium for Chomsky because they needed him to invent the next paradigm, to push Gemini past those architectural limits.
Oh, I see.
So his departure really signals that he believes the environment to build that next-generation reasoning engine isn't at Google anymore. It's at OpenAI.
That makes a lot of sense. So talent of that caliber is the bottleneck for building the models themselves, but then there's the bottleneck of actually writing the software, which brings us to SpaceX.
Yes, the capital side of the equation.
Right. Just 4 days after they pulled off a historic $1.77 trillion NASDAQ IPO, they turned around and announced the largest acquisition of a venture-backed startup in history. They are buying AnySphere in an all-stock deal for $60 billion.
And AnySphere is the maker of Cursor, right?
Right.
Which is an AI coding assistant.
Exactly.
It sits right inside the environment where software engineers write their code and, predicts or generates the next lines for them.
Right. But let me stop you there, because I have a major problem with the math on this deal.
Okay, let's hear it.
Cursor's market share in the coding space was 41% last year. Last month, it dropped to 26%. You do not pay $60 billion for a shrinking asset just to help engineers type a little faster. Like, what is the actual mechanism at play here? Is it really just about coding?
You are absolutely right to question that valuation. I mean, it looks absurd on the surface,
Mm.
but you have to look at what Cursor actually is. It's an integrated development environment, or an IDE.
Okay, so a workspace.
Right? Think of an IDE as the only highway leading out of a software factory. If you own that highway, you don't just collect tolls. You get to dictate which delivery trucks are allowed to use it.
Oh, wow. So it's about control.
Exactly. SpaceX is using this acquisition to build out Elon Musk's xAI division. By owning the environment where the world's best developers work, xAI can capture their telemetry, like how they code, what mistakes they correct, and then they natively embed xAI's own code generation models directly into the workflow.
So it's literally about starving the competition. Because if developers are locked into Cursor and Cursor just defaults to xAI models, then OpenAI and Anthropic lose their direct pipeline to the enterprise developer.
Exactly. It is a pure infrastructure monopoly play. You capture the workflow, and the market share of the underlying tool just becomes secondary to the data pipeline you've just secured.
Which perfectly explains OpenAI's countermove this week. I mean, they aren't just sitting still while xAI tries to monopolize the developers.
Not at all.
OpenAI just launched a $150 million partner network. They are teaming up with the absolute heavyweights of global consulting, McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, Bain, PwC. They want certify 300,000 enterprise consultants by the end of 2026.
This is such a fascinating pivot. OpenAI is publicly admitting something that Silicon Valley usually tries really hard to hide, which is that the bottleneck for extracting value from AI is no longer the intelligence of the model itself.
It's the companies themselves. It's organizational change management.
Precisely. I mean, you can hand a Fortune 500 company the most advanced reasoning model on Earth, right? But if their data is trapped in 50 different legacy software silos from the 1990s, and their middle management has no idea how to actually restructure a workflow, the model is entirely useless.
Right.
It's like dropping an F1 rocket engine into a wooden, horse-drawn carriage. The carriage just shatters.
That's a great analogy. So OpenAI is using these 300,000 consultants as shock absorbers. They go in, they untangle all that legacy data, retrain the workforce, and physically wire the OpenAI ecosystem into the corporate mainframe. They are shifting from just being a system for global corporate strategy.
Yeah. But deploying AI in a corporate boardroom is really only half the battle.
Yeah.
Because the real frontier we saw this week is getting these models out of the cloud entirely and embedding them into the physical world.
Yes, the escape from the web browser, the hardware integration we are seeing right now is just wild. Like, Google just pushed out the final version of Android 17 and Wear OS 7.
Right, to beat Apple to the punch.
Exactly. They are natively integrating their Gemini Omni multimodal AI plus AudioLM for speech translation straight into devices like the Pixel 10a. And they are clearly rushing this to front-run Apple's iOS 27 release in September.
The key word there is natively. Because for the past few years, when you asked an AI a question on your phone had to compress your voice, ping a massive server farm in Virginia or somewhere, wait for the model to process it, and ping it back.
And that delay is so annoying.
Right, that latency kills the illusion of intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Native integration means the model lives on the local silicon of the device itself. So it processes your surroundings, your voice, and your screen in real time, even if you, walk into a subway with zero internet connection.
So the smartphone stops being just a portal to the internet and actually becomes an intelligent, localized agent.
Yes, exactly.
But honestly, even the smartphone feels a bit outdated when you look at what Snap did this week. Evan Spiegel got on stage at AW 2026 and announced the specs.
Oh, the AR glasses.
Yeah, these are standalone augmented reality glasses. No tether, no bulky phone required in your pocket. They cost $2,195, and they natively run Gemini and OpenAI APIs to project digital overlays right onto your field of vision. They basically beat Meta's Orion glasses and Apple to the market.
It changes the entire paradigm of human-computer interaction, because the physical world itself becomes the user interface.
Yeah.
But, consumer hardware is just the entry point here. The scientific and industrial applications are where the mechanisms get truly mind-bending.
That is the perfect word for it, mind-bending. Look at what happened with OpenAI and Molecule One, that Polish biotech startup. They hooked up GPT 5.4 to a high-performance, miniaturized wet lab. And I want to be super clear for you listening. A wet lab means a physical laboratory.
Right, not a simulation.
Real chemicals, real pipettes, real beakers.
Yeah, the AI acted as a quasi-autonomous chemist. So over 3 months, GPT 5.4 formulated hypotheses, controlled the robotic arms to mix the chemicals, analyzed the results using mass spectrometry, and then adjusted its next experiment based on the failures. It ran 10,080 physical experiments in a closed loop.
And it actually worked. It identified a new oxidant that improves a chemical reaction used in over 90 FDA-approved drugs. It manipulated physical matter to discover a new pharmaceutical pathway.
It's incredible. It is the first documented case of a frontier language model acting as a nearly autonomous agent in physical scientific discovery.
But if manipulating physical matter wasn't enough, we also saw AI literally leave the planet. A company called Loft Orbital successfully ran Google DeepMind's Gemma 3 model on their YAM-9 satellite in orbit.
Yeah, Gemma 3 is a vision language model. They ran it on an edge computing setup, which is basically an NVIDIA GPU bolted directly onto the satellite. And it was identifying surface targets like rail hubs, ports, and border zones totally autonomously.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here because my alarm bells are ringing so loud on this one. I understand the mechanism of why they want to do this. Satellites moving at 17,000 miles an hour only have brief windows to pass over ground stations.
Right, bandwidth is a huge issue.
Yeah, beaming terabytes of raw image data through the atmosphere takes massive bandwidth. So processing the image in space and just beaming down a tiny text file that says found a rail hub saves time. But isn't this incredibly dangerous? Like, what happens when a model hallucinates in orbit?
You are hitting on the exact vulnerability. Because the trade-off for reducing that latency is the complete removal of the human in the loop. I mean, a vision model can suffer from artifacts. A cloud formation or a shadow might look like a military installation to the algorithm.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And if an autonomous system misidentifies a civilian structure as a target, and there is no human reviewing the wrong imagery before that data is fed into some automated response network on Earth, the consequences are catastrophic. The lack of guardrails in edge-deployed space assets is a profound risk scenario.
And that reality, the realization that these systems are incredibly powerful and entirely lacking in global guardrails, bridges us directly into the geopolitical panic we witnessed this week.
The panic was palpable. I mean, at the G7 summit in France, world leaders essentially summoned the CEOs of OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Anthropic for a closed-door working lunch. European leaders are realizing that their technological sovereignty is just evaporating.
They're terrified.
Absolutely. They are terrified of absolute American dominance over the global AI infrastructure.
And their fears about how ruthless that American infrastructure can be were entirely validated by what we are calling the Anthropic incident. This is the hook we started the show with, and the details are just wild. Let's lay out the timeline for you.
Okay, let's do it.
On June 12th, the U.S. government officially banned the export of Anthropic's Fable 5 model. The stated reason was a cyber vulnerability, a specific jailbreak.
Right, and for those unfamiliar, a jailbreak is a technique where a user feeds a highly specific, kind of convoluted prompt into an AI to bypass its safety filters. In this case, the vulnerability allowed the model to act as an assistant for offensive cyber attacks, identifying zero-day exploits in server software.
Okay, so the risk is real. The model had a flaw, but the explosive part is the source of the tip.
Right.
The entity that discovered this vulnerability and personally notified the U.S. Treasury wasn't some neutral cybersecurity watchdog. It was Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon.
Yeah, the conflict of interest here is just staggering when you look at the corporate architecture. Because Amazon is Anthropic's primary financial backer. They poured $13 billion into the startup.
$13 billion.
Right, and they hold a board seat. More importantly, Anthropic relies on Amazon Web Services, AWS, to train and host its models. So Amazon has total visibility into Anthropic's infrastructure.
Wow.
But simultaneously, Amazon is building its own internal AI models, the Nova series, to compete directly with Anthropic for enterprise clients.
It is the ultimate corporate betrayal. It's like your landlord changing the locks, calling the cops to say you are a public nuisance, and then opening a competing business in your old storefront. I have to ask you, looking at the mechanics of this, is this actually about national security, or are we witnessing a new era of corporate sabotage where tech giants weaponize government regulation against their own partners?
Honestly, we are witnessing the weaponization of the regulatory apparatus. I mean, the cybersecurity risk is genuine, sure. Nation states are constantly probing these models, But the optics of the Amazon CEO personally escalating a flaw in a partner's system to the federal government, I mean, that cannot be ignored.
No, absolutely not.
The battlefield for market share isn't just in the code anymore. It is in the halls of federal agencies.
And the political fallout has been immediate. Just to look at the facts impartially here. David Sachs, who is currently serving as an AI advisor to the Trump administration, revealed that the White House actually offered Anthropic an ultimatum before the ban.
Yeah, two choices.
Right, they had two choices. Fundamentally alter the model's weights to fix the jailbreak, or voluntarily take it offline.
And according to Sachs, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei refused both. His argument was that the jailbreak was a narrow exploit that could easily be reproduced on open-source models anyway, making a targeted takedown mathematically pointless.
So the government forced it offline. But Anthropic did not just take it on the chin. In an act of sheer geopolitical defiance, they immediately flew executives to Seoul and opened a new headquarters in South Korea. They publicly promised to restore access to their massive corporate client base in the Asia-Pacific region.
It's a brilliant, aggressive chess move. They aren't just opening an office, they are migrating data centers. South Korea is a critical U.S. tech ally, home to companies like SK Hynix that produce the memory chips these models require.
Right, the hardware.
Yeah, by moving operations there, Anthropic is leveraging the demand of allied nations.
Yeah.
They're essentially saying, if the U.S. regulatory regime is too restrictive, we will simply build our infrastructure in a friendly jurisdiction outside the reach of U.S. export controls.
It is a massive flex. But, while tech titans and governments are playing 3D chess over export controls, the collateral damage and the immense benefits are crashing down into the broader real-world economy. We are seeing starkly different macroeconomic scenarios playing out depending on where you look.
Oh, absolutely. The bifurcation of the global workforce is happening in real time. Just look at the data coming out of China.
Yeah, China's State Council just published their 5-year employment plan for 2026 to 2030. They have officially mapped out a top-down warning system because they calculate that AI poses a direct displacement risk to 70 million jobs.
70 million.
And the timing is brutal. They are dealing with youth unemployment hovering between 16 and 17%, with almost 13 million new university graduates entering the market this summer alone. They are actively bracing for a massive economic impact.
And you really have to look at the mechanisms of the Chinese economy to understand the panic here. Much of their employment base is built on routine, repeatable tasks, both physical manufacturing and entry-level cognitive work, like basic data processing and translation.
Which is exactly what AI does best.
Exactly. That is what AI excels at replacing. So the Chinese government views automation not just as an economic issue, but as a systemic threat to the social contract and social stability. They simply cannot afford 70 million unemployed citizens.
But then you flip the map and you look at Latin America. A Colombian startup called Telepatia just raised $33 million from Andreessen Horowitz. They built an AI clinical assistant. It sits in the consultation room, listens to the patient, transcribes the notes, cross-references medical histories, and suggests treatment protocols. It is already deployed in 5 countries, including the massive Hospital Mater Dei network in Brazil, and it's serving 14 million patients.
And look at the efficiency gains there. It isn't replacing the doctor at all.
Exactly. Doctors are saving 1.7 hours a day on paperwork. The CEO of Telepatia called it a second brain for physicians. So connecting these two extremes, China bracing for 70 million displaced workers, while in Colombia, AI is a second brain saving highly trained specialists nearly 2 hours a day. Are we looking at a bifurcated future? Does AI basically hollow out the working class while absolutely supercharging the professional class?
That is the exact macroeconomic risk scenario that labor economists are warning about right now. It is known as skill-biased technological change, but, on absolute steroids.
Right.
If you are listening to this right now and wondering where your job falls, look at the nature of your daily tasks. If you perform routine, highly structured work, whether that is writing boilerplate code or processing insurance claims, AI is a replacement threat. But if your job requires complex interpretation, empathy, and high-level strategic synthesis, like a senior physician or an executive, AI is a productivity multiplier. The systemic danger here is the total hollowing out of the middle class, creating a deeply unequal global economy.
And the systemic risks of this technology aren't just confined to the labor market. It's bleeding into global finance. Christine Lagarde, the president of the European Central Bank, gave a highly sobering speech in Venice this week.
Yes, the ECB just concluded a massive stress test. They tested 109 major banks across the Eurozone, specifically for cyber resilience against AI-driven attacks.
And the results clearly terrified her. She warned that AI could trigger dangerous, fast-moving financial crises. We are talking about automated phishing attacks at a scale we've never seen, spoofed liquidity, and algorithmic flash crashes.
It's serious stuff.
She went so far as to demand global treaties, explicitly comparing the need for AI governance to the nuclear non-proliferation treaties of the Cold War.
And when the head of the European Central Bank starts using the phrase nuclear non-proliferation, the financial establishment listens, and the legal establishment in the U.S. is already mobilizing. A coalition of 42 U.S. state attorneys general, led by New York's Letitia James, just served OpenAI with a massive sweeping subpoena.
They are demanding documentation on everything: how OpenAI manages health data, their advertising practices, user engagement metrics, and specifically how their models interact with minors. And the timing here is not a coincidence. They dropped this subpoena just days after OpenAI confidentially filed for an IPO that values the company at over $852 billion.
The mechanism here is vital to understand. Because the federal government in the U.S. is largely gridlocked on AI legislation, the state-level regulatory apparatus is stepping in.
Picking up the slack.
Right. They are using existing consumer protection laws to force transparency from AI companies before those companies go public and become, too big to regulate. They want to look inside the black box before retail investors are exposed to the risk.
So we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. I mean, we saw a star engineer whose architectural insights are so valuable that his movement shifts the balance of power. We saw a $60 billion acquisition designed to monopolize the very keyboards where developers type.
It's been a busy week.
We watched AI physically manipulate lab chemicals and identify targets from Earth orbit. We unpacked a corporate government showdown over cyber risks, and we looked at the massive macroeconomic ripples altering 70 million jobs and terrifying global central banks.
Yeah, the foundational infrastructure of the next decade was poured this week, and the concrete is setting fast. But I want to leave you with a final thought, building on Christine Lagarde's profound analogy about nuclear non-proliferation.
Okay, let's hear it.
If AI truly is the new nuclear power, look closely at the entangled web of Amazon, Anthropic, and the U.S. government that we discussed. Look at the desperate race for talent and the massive deployment of $60 billion for a coding interface. Ask yourself this: are we currently in the era of peaceful atomic energy, carefully managing a new utility for the benefit of global society? Or have we already entered the arms race phase, quietly stockpiling algorithmic weapons while pretending it's just business as usual?
Wow. That is a phenomenal question to sit with, and one we will definitely be tracking. That concludes our analytical portion for today.
We must now present our mandatory disclaimer. Aviso Legal. This content is strictly informational and educational, compiling public market data, projections, and analyses. It expresses no ideological bias and constitutes no investment, financial, legal, or tax advice. Economic and technological projections change frequently. Past performance does not guarantee future returns. The goal of this space is to introduce concepts and stimulate debate. Listeners must consult qualified professionals and specialists before making any strategic, financial, or wealth-related decisions.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We know your time is valuable, and we are grateful to help you navigate these massive shifts. We invite you to join us for our future broadcasts as we continue to track this rapidly changing landscape.
That was today's Macroeconomy AI. We'll leave it here.
Yeah.
You all stay well and keep an eye out for our new broadcasts. Subscribe to our channel, access the links, and follow Macroeconomy AI on social media.
Bye.